Tonight, House Republicans are still trying to come to a consensus on a candidate for Speaker of the House. Last week, House Majority Leader Steve Scalise was chosen behind closed doors, but then he withdrew the next day after it became clear he did not have the 217 votes needed.
Yeah, they're under pressure to make a decision soon. Now, Ohio Representative Jim Jordan is now behind the scenes, shoring up enough votes for the bid possibly, but a number of Republican representatives continue to oppose him.
Here to help break this down for us today is Republican strategist Jason Cabel Roe. Thanks for being here today, Jason.
Thanks for having me.
So, what do you think is going to happen? How much of an uphill battle is this for Representative Jordan?
It's not as uphill as it was this morning. Talking to some leadership staffers just in the last couple hours. This morning, they didn't think there was any way he was going to make up the 50 or 60 votes they thought that he needed. And when I talked to them a half hour ago, 45 minutes ago, they think he's within 10 and that those 10 are not insurmountable. So tonight they'll go into conference, argue a little bit more, but what I'm hearing is they're going to bring it to the floor tomorrow morning, and I think that he will wrap it up.
Interesting. I mean, we know there's a lot of issues that need to be addressed, but when you look at McCarthy, it took so long for him to get in there, several rounds. One of the many things very unusual about his reign. Do you think that the pressure is on because there's so much going on and we need a speaker in place?
I think the optics of it, if you're Republicans right now running for election or running against a Democrat and trying to make the case that you're better capable of leading the country and the Congress, it's not a very good look when you can't even settle amongst yourselves who your leader should be. So I think time has been Jim Jordan's friend, that this week without leadership, this kind of embarrassing week of everybody looking at Republicans like the gang that can't shoot straight, probably worked to Jordan's benefit, where some of those folks that were holding out would just like to get this mess cleaned up and start focusing on the things that they're there to do and not this intramural family squabbling.
So what do we know about who is still a holdout, these 10 people or fewer? Do we know where they kind of fall within the party?
Yeah, it's not the arsonist that took out Speaker McCarthy. It's moderates that, one, just feel like Jim Jordan is more of the MAGA kind of Republican, whereas Kevin McCarthy genuflected to the MAGA Republicans, but he wasn't really one of them, and I think that was part of his problem. I think one of the biggest sticking points is fear of a government shutdown, and from what I'm hearing from folks, that a lot of those moderate members that have come around to Jordan is in conversations with him, he's assuring them that he will avoid a government shutdown, because that's going to put every Republican in the crosshairs politically if that does happen. And so how he pulls that off without getting beat up by the base or Donald Trump or whoever, I don't know.
Right, with that, haven't we seen a recent speaker who tried to avoid a government shutdown?
We've seen a little bit
who's
of
no
that.
longer speaker?
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, if Jordan comes forward with some kind of a deal with the White House that doesn't satiate the Matt Gaetzes of the world, who knows if we see another rerun of what happened to McCarthy.
For those leaders who are still a little bit on the fence, how would you imagine those conversations are going with their colleagues to just encourage them to make that choice?
Oh, I'm sure we got to get rid of this. Like, if they don't get it done tomorrow morning, how many more days or even weeks do we go through this situation where we can't come to a consensus? And that's the problem with the group that got rid of McCarthy, is you're supposed to settle this within the House Republican Conference, and then you go to the floor united. So if you can't win in conference, well, that's too bad, you lost. When you see Republicans now working with Democrats to obstruct the will of the majority of the House Republicans, you're working against your own team. And I think everybody, whether you're on the conservative side or the moderate side of the House Republican Conference, would probably like to button this thing up and move forward.
So let's say Jim Jordan does not make it to the gavel tomorrow, or even if he does, how do you think the coming months will play out, especially when there's so much power in that one caucus?
I have always thought there would be a third candidate that would emerge, and who knows? That's not an impossibility right now. I think there's some folks like Patrick McHenry, who's been the acting speaker. I think he is pretty well liked and trusted, even if some constituencies within House Republicans don't see him as one of theirs. They see him as an honest broker that won't lie to you and you can work with to get the things that you do want. Richard Hudson, who's the chairman of the NRCC, Tom Emmer, who's the number 3 in leadership as the whip. These are all folks that I think could put together a coalition. So if Jordan doesn't make it, and I do think he will at this point, I think there are some alternatives, and I think they probably move relatively quickly to those alternatives rather than letting this linger.
Yeah, hopefully we're wrapping this up soon. What are your thoughts just overall that we've even gotten to this point, just in general?
It's embarrassing. I mean, listen, I know it's crazy things have happened in the 248 years of our country in the Congress and in politics, but this is just not a great look. It was, I think, an unnecessary thing. I mean, folks who know Kevin McCarthy, and I've known him for 30 plus years, knew he was never going to live up to the deal he made. So why they then held him accountable to that deal, is kind of head scratching. But if we come out of this and we govern and we do the things that we're supposed to be doing, I think all of this will be a blip in the radar. If we find ourselves veering from crisis to crisis, whether it's our self-inflicted internal crisis or dealing with the crises around the world and within the country, then I think Republicans are going to have a real challenge going into the November election.
And on that note, do you think they'll be able to get right to work? Say we have a Speaker Jordan this time tomorrow. Do you think they'll be able to get right to work on those pressing issues?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think the infrastructure is there, the staff, the protocol. So, I don't think it's going to be hard. And Jim Jordan's been a committee chairman. He's been in the Congress a long time. He knows his way around. So it's not like we're, calling up a rookie off the bench to try to lead the body. Right. The infrastructure's there. So I think we'll get in fast order to dealing with the things on the legislative agenda. His challenge is going to be ramping up to the political. He's not a great fundraiser. And the Speaker of the House is going to have to raise a few $100 million for House Republicans if they're going to hold the Congress.
Well, time will tell. This is Republican strategist Jason Cabel Roe. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.